Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. The Orc train has departed and it has led them to the Warriors of Chaos in their search for a good old scrap. We have the Greenskins versus Chaos in this Warhammer World Championship matchup between Sladex on the Greenskins and EC, the Green One, on the Chaos side. So for the Greenskins, we do have some goblins on the far flanks, but the center ranks is going to be triple Black Orcs. Heavily armored, armor piercing, great weapon strength, and immune to psychology. What more could you ask for against the Warriors of Chaos? And they'll be rolling in with some goblins on the two flanks. We have a 8 peak loonies up in front here. Going to be looking to try and get a little fanatics cast off, I'm sure, before kind of falling back behind their lines and allowing those Black Orcs to really wreck shop against those heavily armored warriors on the other side. We do have the Morgrub's Mangy Marauders as well. They do have that armor piercing, the ROR Goblin Wolf Rider Archer, and there's some Orc Arrow Boys to add to the mix as well. For the Lord, it is going to be Skarsnik. Skarsnik is going to be coming in with that Fermented Fungi as well as a Spite of the Bad Moon, which gives additional armor piercing weapon damage, base weapon damage increase, and a bonus versus large. All very helpful abilities there. We have a Night Goblin Shaman for the spellcasting, going to be coming in with a Vindictive Glare, which is always a very good spell. We have Sneaky Stabbing, given even more armor piercing, definitely against Chaos. These are some very nice little tools to be having. And we have Itchy Nuisance, which is a little AoE debuff, giving minus 30 weapon strength and minus 24 melee attack. We do have some Stone Trolls, some more heavy armor piercing to be thrown into the mix, and then there's going to be the Rusty Errors in the back who do have their armor sundering, and then once they have used up their ammunition, they do have a little bit of poison, so they are a little bit useful even after that. In the back line, we do have some Orc Boar Boys just for a little bit of mobility, and then we have some Forest Goblin Spider Riders as well for just a little bit more poison to throw into the mix. Just kind of keep any of those poison warhounds out of the back door from Chaos. Now for the Chaos side, we do have some Marauder Horsemen in that Vanguarded, and so they're just going to be providing a little bit of just skirmish against those Forest Goblin Spider Riders, but really they're not probably going to be able to trade too effectively into them. Those Forest Goblin Spider Riders are a tough little nut to crack. We have some Chaos Marauders for that front line, and it is going to be Sartorial, the Everwatcher for the Lord. We're rolling in a nice Unbreakable Lord, and going to be bringing Searing Doom. We have Glittering Robe to give even more armor to the Chaos side, really racking up, doubling down on the heavy armor. And of course, he does have that Arcane Conduit. In the secondary line, it is going to be Chosen with Halberds. Now, unfortunately, there's not going to be as many Stone Trolls. I think definitely expecting that has kind of been the meta for this matchup, is just having a bunch of Stone Trolls, and these Chosen with Halberds would do just amazingly well against them. Unfortunately, it's going to be Black Orcs instead, but luckily for Chaos, they do have some Chaos Spawn to help with that, and one of which is the Weird Spawn, who do have armor sundering. They do have a nice little bit of physical resist, so a nice little additional unit there to just kind of help whittle through that high armor of those Black Orcs. And then some more Chaos Spawn with those Chaos Warhounds in the back. Now the Poison variant, just the regular, just a little bit of extra quick mobility, hoping to help just kind of chase things off, I'm sure. And that is going to be the armies. So let's get things rolling. Looks like we have a Vindictive Glare going to be going down, going to be targeting Sartorial, going to be making connection, but unfortunately he does have a lot of missile resist, and I believe that does translate to those magic missiles. So he's really able to tank that pretty effectively. And these AP Loonies taking a lot of damage early on. They're going to want to be getting that Fanatics off and getting the hell out of there. They did not want to be sticking around, taking too much unnecessary damage. They are going to be dodging this Searing Doom pretty well, taking a little bit of damage, but overall they're still alive and well. But they do need to be very careful, because if they do get below 25% health, they are going to be losing that Fanatics ability, and that is one of the big reasons why you bring these guys. You don't want to be wasting them so early on. They do get that Fanatics off, going to be doing a lot of damage, and it might even go through right into the Chosen, which is going to be a very nice little addition there. So it does go through them just a little bit, but they are taking a ton of damage, and that might be the only Fanatics we're going to be seeing in this fight. Chosen going to be engaging with Stone Trolls, and that is exactly where they want to be. Stone Trolls seeing that, trying to pull right out of there, while those Chosen are hot on their heels, and these Chaos Warhounds threading the gap, going to be charging on into the back line, getting into the Rusty Errors, exactly where they want to be. And the Greenskins need to have some kind of response if they're going to want to be saving their really their kind of big, important unit, which is the Rusty Arrows, those Stone Trolls, and those Chosen just getting right through the Greenskin line, doing a lot of work there. And man, those Black Orcs are just getting torn to pieces in that front line. The wall does go off, giving them a little bit of extra staying power. I mean, the Black Orcs on the far flank have been able to win pretty decisively, but where the Chosen are, the Black Orcs are struggling to get through. Even though they have a lot of armor piercing, those Chosen are just something else, as they are just putting a major beat down. And the plus side is they have been able to push off those Chaos Warhounds, but this center engagement, they are being able to deal with Sartorial fairly well. He is taking a ton of damage, and he is going to be needing to get right out of there, but he does get charged in by those Orc Boar Boys, and he does not have a whole lot of places to run at this point, as he is getting danger low, and the Black Orcs now are starting to collapse upon the formation of Chaos here. We do have the Black Orcs going to be coming on in right into the rear of these Chosen, and that little rear charge in is probably going to be causing these Chosen to waver, if not outright break. The Sartorial has been able to push back the just charging Orc Boar Boys, but he is still not out of the woods yet, just on slivers of HP. Stone Trolls are just pretty much waiting at this point. They can't really engage with those Chosen still in that fight. And honestly, they can wait just long enough too, because they do have that regen, so they'll just be able to kind of just be nice and patient in coming back into this fight. And these Black Orcs have been able to push off one of the Chosen. There is still 2 to go, and those Chosen have started to take a lot of damage. One is getting pretty low. With the addition of the Trolls, seeing those Chosen going to be pulling out, thinking, let's go for a different target there. There is still the other Chosen who is very, very healthy. The bounce power is pretty heavily in the Greenskin favor at this point. All of the archers are still up and operational, so that is one of the big things. So they have been able to get rid of the Rusty Arrows, which is probably one of the bigger threats to those Chosen, considering it'll be reducing their armor to the point where a lot of these Greenskins units will be able to do a lot of damage, not just the Black Orcs. And all of the big major units like the Chaos Spawn, the Weird Spawn, have all gotten taken down pretty much at this point. There's not a whole lot left. The mobility is in the Greenskins' favor, just kind of slowly plucking away at everything. Sartorial does finally go down, and a lot of the kind of just harassing units for the Chaos side is out of the fight. And that is going to be our first game. Greenskins do take it. The Chosen just unable to hold back the Green Tide. So let's take a look at the Battle Report. Update that scorecard as Slade takes game 1. And then we'll just kind of see how things did fare. So on the Chaos side, we do have all of the Chaos Spawn. Weird Spawn were the only... Well, actually, no, the Weird Spawn didn't do very well. It was one of the regular ones. Not really doing all too well there. They just got broken down pretty quickly. Just that heavy armor of the Black Orcs, they just weren't able to really perform all too well. I mean, if had that been like just regular like Orc Boys or something like that, they would have done a lot better, or even Savage Orcs, but not Black Orcs. They just a little too much for them, and even the Chosen just not really doing all too well. Getting some decent damage, but just not quite enough. And then Sartorial taking a lot of damage early on is kind of probably one of the big things here. He was able to do a decent amount of work, but yeah, just so much damage. He had to play way too cautiously in the end there to really provide too much of a game changer. For all of the Greenskins, Morkos Mage Marauders doing excellent work. 964 with all of that armor piercing, able to really kind of just pluck away at all of those Chosen. Good work on that side. The Orc Boar Boys were able to kind of clean up shop on the flanks, and then just the Rusty Arrows, which was very, very nice. Getting 740. Rest of the archers able to kind of just continue to do a lot of good damage as well. And then the Black Orcs were just there kind of just pounding on those Chosen, doing some decent work. A couple of them getting over 1,000. We do have the AP Cloonies, which is maybe one of the only misplays on the Greenskins, was having these guys take so much damage early on. They were able to get one good Fanatics cast off, but they really just took too much, and they needed to be a lot more patient, I think, with those AP Cloonies. Otherwise, the Night Goblin Shaman really didn't get a whole lot of good damage. Most of that was in getting that armor piercing and those debuffs on the other side. And then Skarsnik himself doing some okay work, getting some damage in onto Sartorial. But otherwise, that is going to be game 1. Let's roll on in to game 2. The Dread Fleet casts off for game 2 between Sladex on the Vampire Coast, and EC the Green One will be commanding Bretonia. So for the Vampire Coast army, We're going to be seeing a lot of gunpowder here, as the front line is going to be zombie powered deckhand mobs with the halberds, and then we're going to be seeing some more of the regular units mixed in across that front line. They're going to be backed up by a couple of bombers looking to kind of clear out some of the Bretonnian chaff infantry, and then we do have some handgunners spread out throughout the formation here on all sides here, and then there is going to be some scurvy dogs in the back for some nice quick mobility, some more pole arms and units just going to be protecting the mortars, and as well as the carronade here. And we do also have the Lamprey's Revenge going to be rolling on in a nice heavily armored crab unit that has some nice armor-piercing missile fire on the back, and they do have a nice little bit of regeneration to boot, so really good at kind of just bogging down Bretonnian cavalry while giving some nice steady DPS into them throughout the fight, and very hard to bring down as well, especially when Count Noctilus is going to be on the field coming on in with that Invocation on a Heck raised dead, as well as that Wraithstorm and Captain's Wrath's Moondial. So plenty of magic on his side, going to be casting throughout, lots of summons, lots of heals, no doubt. And then in the sky we do have some Fellbats as well, just kind of help chase things off as well, and just shut down the any of the range units. The Russian field trebuchets, which is going to be on the Bretonnian side. And speaking of Bretonnia, we're going to be seeing some peasant mobs for that front line, going to be backed up by some men-at-arms, just something a little bit better to kind of get through that front line of the Vampire Coast. And we also going to be seeing some battle pilgrims, and one of which is the Holy Wardens of La Maison-Tel, and they do have magical attacks as well as flaming attacks. So if there are any like sirens, for example, these guys would have done quite well against them, and even as such they'll still do very well because they'll be able to just kind of chew through that front line as quickly as they can and get right into all those handgunners. Up in the sky is going to be King Lewin Leoncoeur, so he is going to be bringing, looks like he has pretty much his full kit, so he does have that sort of Couronne. We have the Lion Shield, so plus 44% in missile resist and magic resist, especially against coast. That missile resist is very, very helpful. And then we do have Stand Your Ground. We do have the Beloved Son of Bretonnia and the Ladies Champion, which does give him that regen when he is up on his Griffin. Just as long as his leadership stays above, or he does not break, that will be continual throughout the fight. We do have some Blessed Field Trebuchets mixed in with some regular Field Trebuchets, just kind of be plucking away across the board, just trying to force the engagement and try and win that artillery duel. And especially when there's only one carronade, they should actually be able to do that. And then we have some Peasant Bowmen fire arrows in the back just for some nice steady DPS. And then there's going to be some questing knights in the back line, and bringing these in just in case there's some like rotting leviathans or those Lamprey's Revenge is going to be very helpful to have that armor piercing for that cavalry. But they do have to be very careful. They don't want to be engaging too early, or they'll just get shot to pieces, and that's a very expensive unit to be put to waste. And for the casting, it is going to be a Damsel of Life coming in with Earthblood and Regrowth, just keeping everything nice and healthy in this engagement. But that is going to be all for the armies, so let's roll on in. As the shots raining across the board, already doing some nice damage to these mortars, taking a lot of HP out of their crew, but not so much going to be taking out their pieces themselves. But still, if they're able to get rid of these crew, that's going to be one gone. And so far there has been no return fire on the coast side. They've just been on the receiving end of everything here, and really with this map it is going to make it quite hard to snipe out the enemy Blessed Field Trebuchets, because just looking at that line of sight, these cannons going to have a hard time, but they might have enough range to start to be firing over this ridge here and get into those Field Trebuchets. But so far those Field Trebuchets are on the plus side, just trading very, very well. Mortars are just trying to get as many shots off as they can. They are starting to rain some in amongst those Blessed Field Trebuchets, but I think at this point the coast artillery is just not going to be able to win the day. There's just way too many trebuchets on the other side, and the line of sight just isn't really going to be on the coast favor here, so they're going to probably have to be pushing up here pretty soon, as the Bretonnian just artillery is just doing amazing work getting rid of like these mortar crews. There goes another one. They've actually have been able to take out 2 of the artillery pieces themselves, so those explosions from those Blessed Field Trebuchets have been enough to finish the job, and away it goes. As I was saying before, it's like I thought they'd be taking out the crew, and they almost did. Only 6 models left, but really those our trebuchets have been able to get rid of the artillery pieces themselves quite quickly. And the Vampire Coast really do need to push up here. They are not winning that artillery duel in the slightest. All of the Peasant Bowmen as well, just kind of keeping these Fellbats away. I think the Fellbats are just trying to like get a dive in, maybe thinking that they could stop the Field Trebuchets themselves, but all of these questing knights and the archers just making sure that's not going to be the case. Well, they are about to be able to rout one of the Field Trebuchets here, but there is still going to be two of them, and those are going to be the Blessed Field Trebuchets as well. And just continue firing away. You just actually get a cheeky little Earthblood in, just healing them up, just keeping those artillery pieces as healthy as possible. And so far, the trade has actually been able to rout off two of the crews for the Vampire Coast, but still, I'm trying to think, they may be able to get that edge there if they are able to get that other crew off the field, but they do need to make sure they stay focused on these crew, because if we take a look at this other one, actually they have been able to take out all of these artillery pieces. This Field Trebuchet is completely done and dusted. It is down just to these other two, and the Blessed Field Trebuchet crew here unfortunately is not going to be able to crew this Field Trebuchet here. They can only crew the other Blessed Field Trebuchet, so the routed crew is going to have to be able to get back on top of those. So as I was thinking that the artillery duel might not be so in favor of Bretonnia as I initially thought, the mortars and the carronades are starting to do some good work to the opposing side, so it is pretty much just continuing to duel things out with the two artillery pieces. More shots raining in from the Blessed against those mortars, and they are going to be falling amongst the zombie bombers as well, so they can be doing a little bit of collateral damage, but these mortars are crumbling. An invocation actually would probably be very good here, because that does actually heal up those artillery pieces, and it would get them back in that fight, stop the crumbling for sure. So a little bit of healing on the Vampire Coast side would definitely be very beneficial. These trebuchets are getting back online, mortars starting to land amongst them, seeing them back, but they might be able to get at least a couple volleys off, and especially if those mortars do go offline again. I think they're just about to do that. They are on slivers of HP with two left. I think another volley from these Blessed Field Trebuchets should be enough to seal it, as the shot does arc its way forward, landing amongst them, and there they go. Down goes the last two models for that crew, and it's going to be taking out these bombers pretty much as well, just leaving the carronades left, who are used about half their ammunition, but that ammunition has been pretty well spent. They have been able to take out these trebuchets over here, but it is continuing to fire in when all of the models are completely broken, so there's no point in continually firing on this side. The cannons really do need to change their attention and start firing on the other ones, and really they should probably focus the Blessed Field Trebuchet if they want to be getting some nice decent damage, and just eliminating one of probably the more critical threats. Because if you're looking at it in terms of ammunition though, the regular Field Trebuchet is probably the target to go for, and they've already routed off once. If you're able to rout them off another time or two, it might be enough to outright shatter them. But now the Vampire Coast is going to be advancing, losing both of their mortars. They're just going to be slowly pushing the field up. We're just going to speed things up just a little bit. Probably could have done that a little bit earlier as the artillery duel was underway. But the Vampire Coast is going to be looking to breach this hill, and honestly Bretonnia, if they can push that top ridge, is going to eliminate a lot of the advantage that the gun lines have for the handgunners, because they'll have to take this ridge themselves. But Bretonnia is looking to be conceding that upper ridge here, and once the Vampire Coast is able to get their handgunners up on top of that hill as well, then they are going to start to be able to fire away. But they're going to be electing to be targeting King Lewin up in the sky. The handgunner fire is going to be crossing his way, but most of the shots are going to be landing astray, as the fire arrows now looking to just finish up these bombers who have taken a ton of damage from the Blessed Field Trebuchets on the approach. And getting rid of these guys is pretty much all of the chaff clearing power that the Vampire Coast do have. They have plenty of summons to add to the mix. They also have them in the Lamprey's Revenge, but there is going to be the questing knights getting that charge into those big old rotting Prometheans, and they'll be able to do some nice decent work once they are engaged in melee. And if that cannon wants to deal with them, they're going to be getting a little bit of friendly fire, and you just see that health just dropping so very fast on the Lamprey's Revenge as King Lewin dives in as well, getting that armor reduced even farther. So the Questing Knights are just taking it to the Lamprey's Revenge, doing a ton of damage there. But if you look at the rest of the Bretonnians, their lines is starting to get compromised. The Peasant Mob is not going to be holding for very long, and they are going to be starting to get into that back line as we get, looks like that is a summon going to be getting into the Blessed Field Trebuchet, and Count Noctilus going to be waiting for it, probably dropping some more summons onto the field, just trying to shut down all of the range units. And I think the Peasant Bowmen right now are the critical target, and away go those Lamprey's Revenge. They did not last so long. They got broken very quickly by King Lewin and those Questing Knights, pretty much the counters to those Lampreys, as the Zombie Pirate handgunners trying to fire in, but the Questing Knights will not be denied as they get a nice charge into those handgunners. King Lewin taking out another one, and the balance power shifting more into Bretonia's favor bit by bit. Battle Pilgrim's going to be able to clean things out. Men-at-Arms not holding all too long, but they do not need to, as the Questing Knights and all of the Battle Pilgrims going to be doing most of the heavy lifting here. Peasant Bowmen trying to just kind of run away from the summons for as long as they can, and things not looking so great as all of the handgunner units now are being taken out of the fight. These guys are disintegrating. Another one is going down, and more units are getting compromised bit by bit. Only one unit is really able to be free to fire at this point. Carronades are almost completely out of ammunition, and the balance power is probably being held aloft entirely by Count Noctilus, as all of his support now is just crumbling away on all fronts. He does try and get a little bit of, actually there's an Earthblood coming down from the from the Bretonnians, but yeah, things are looking mighty grim for the undead in this fight. I don't think there's much hope left for them. Count Noctilus is not going to be able to tank all of this. There's just way too much chaff left, and Slade seeing that is going to be conceding. So the green one is going to be taking a game back. So let's take a look at the after battle report, update the scorecard, and I'll take a look at how things did on both sides. Carronades, they did a very good work. I think Slade definitely wishing he brought one more Carronade over a mortar, because that may have turned that engagement in an entirely different way, would have been forcing the Bretonnians forward instead of the other way around. And especially with the map, that little ridge there on Altdorf outskirts, it really does hurt Coast with a lot of their units being direct fire. So that was a bit of a pain on that side. Mortars really not able to do much. And the Lamprey's Revenge, another one that got broken down very, very fast. Those Questing Knights and King Lewin, with that Sword of Corone, major problem for these guys. And let's just take a quick little look at everything else. Nothing doing all too much. Actually, one of the handgunners did quite well, getting 1100 on those guys. Bombers, a complete non-factor there, getting taken out before they were even able to fire a single volley. And Noctilus himself just wasn't able to do anything, just kind of stuck in with chaff himself, unable to really get on the targets he needs. And usually you do actually see him on his Necrofex Colossus in this matchup, because he's just such a good unit to deal with, like Cav, for example. That Necrofex does quite well against those guys. As for the Bretonnians, the Field Trebuchets definitely doing very well. These Blessed getting 1300 themselves. Questing Knights doing some nice work. These guys getting 1100, dealing with those Lamprey's Revenge quite well. A couple of Peasant Bowmen able to get some nice decent shots in, and then after that it was just pretty much dealing with all of the handgunners. And once they were offline, there wasn't really much of an answer to all of the Battle Pilgrims. I mean, 4 in total. It was just very hard for all the chaff to be cleared out, especially once the bombers, handgunners were dealt with. Noctilus was not going to be able to duel all of those units by his lonesome, and King Lewin was still healing himself up, so there wasn't going to be much to deal with what the Bretonnians had. So that was it for Game 2. Let's roll on into the rubber match. Game 3 coming right up. The murderous Druki are going to be looking to settle the score for Slade X here in the final game, as the Druki will be facing off against the Norscan Tide as they battle in the Chaos Waste. Definitely going to be kind of on the home front for Norskins there. Can be enjoying that chaos corruption throughout. But for the Druki, it is going to be Witch Elves across that front line, one of which is going to be the Sisters of Singing Doom, providing some rampage across the board here, but they are very lightly armored. They do quite a bit of damage, since they do have that bonus versus infantry. Against any of the large units, they are going to struggle mightily indeed. But we do have some Sisters of Slaughter as well. They do have some poison on both flanks. They have a nice little bit of physical resist to boot. 20% at that. to just kind of give them a little bit of extra tankiness. We do have some Dark Riders with shields on the 2 flanks for a little bit of mobility, and in the backline we do have a pair of Dark Shards protected by some Dread Spears and another unit of Dark Riders. For the Lord, it is going to be Morathi on foot. She is going to be coming in with that Soul Stealer, looking to just kind of drain away the Norskins. She does have the Heartrender and the Dark Sword, so -9 melee defense and melee attack around her. Enchanting Beauty for an additional -9 melee attack and charge bonus. And then she just has the rest of her just lower passives to boot with that. But that is it for the Druchii side. All of the Witch Elves have very off-meta pick for sure. Generally, you'd be seeing a lot of Blackguard over the Witch Elves, considering Norskin's strength usually lies in their monstrous units. And speaking of Norska, we do have the Norskin Ice Wolves paired in with some Skin Wolves for that mobility, and that is going to be those large units. That is going to be a bit of a problem, I think, for those Witch Elves trying to deal with them. Now, they do have some nice DPS, and getting that rampage in will help, but it is going to be a problem nonetheless. And definitely this Norskin army, I think they were expecting to be seeing some of those Blackguard. We have just Marauders in that front line, but they will be backed up by Marauder Hunters. So these throwing axes going to be having that shield breaker as well as that armor piercing, and this is probably definitely what they expected was to be seeing those Blackguard, and that is why these units are here. But instead, it is just going to be Witch Elves. Now, they will be able to get some nice damage in, but most of that armor piercing going to be pretty much wasted here. Nothing on the Druchii side have any armor really to be speaking anything of. Now, for the Lord and Hero, it is going to be Wulfric the Wanderer on horseback. He does have Seafang and Hunter of Champions, and then we have a Fear Balefine of Shadows going to be rolling in. It looks like we have Enfeebling Foe and the Pendulum to boot as well. Enfeebling Foe, nice for any of the more duelist lords like Malekith, for example, and of course the Pendulum would have been nice for the Blackguard, but unfortunately there's none of those to be speaking of. We do have some Beasts of Tashnar as well for some nice anti-large, and really only the Dark Riders, and the Dark Riders do need to be rather careful though, because I mean, all of these Skin Wolves, they will do a major amount of damage. Actually, some of these are the armored variant as well, just making it even a little bit harder for the Druchii to really deal with it, but they do have tools to deal with that with those Dark Shards who have armor-piercing missile fire. But that's going to be it for the army, so let's roll on things as the Norskins pretty much trying to take the high ground here. And the Druchii going to be having a little bit of an uphill battle. They don't quite have the distance. Actually, the Norskin's going to be a little bit more laid back. That's actually going to be allowing the Druchii to pretty much crest this hill, and I think they are going to be able to take that and engage on the high ground against these Marauders, and all of these Witch Elves should be able to make quick work of these Marauders. You've seen these guys already rampaging, and the Sisters of Slaughter on the far flank, though, getting beat down pretty quickly with all these Skin Wolves and the rest of the mobility collapsing on them. But the Witch Elves trading pretty well, though. We do have a Pendulum going to be coming right on down. We also have a Seafang going through that line as well, doing a nice bit of damage there. But these Witch Elves probably going to be routing, as is the Marauders. So both of the sides here going to be breaking very quickly. Witch Elves have been even rampaging those Skin Wolves, those armored Skin Wolves, allowing the Dark Shards to get some shots in. But the Beasts of Tashnar do charge through the gaps in the formation. Dread Spear's a little slow on the draw, though, but they will be peeling off those Beasts of Tashnar, and the Witch Elves just quickly getting into that back line. Can we get shutting down these Marauder Hunters? We did have a little Soul Stealer going down, hitting a few units on the Norskin side as Morathi just kind of slowly pushes forward. She does have to be very careful as Hunter Champion does go down on top of her, and Wulfric going to be trying to finish the job. Now, luckily for Morathi, despite losing a lot of that armor and everything, I see, though, with that Enfeebling Foe to boot as well with Hunter Champion, though Wulfric just seems unable to really land a hit as he's just kind of slowly just pushing Morathi here, though Wulfric does have quite a bit of debuffs on himself with Morathi's just passive, but he does land a hit there. I do hear a Pendulum going off in the distance, but pretty much the bounce power actually is in the Dark Elves' favor at this point. It just, all of that infantry just got completely decimated, and that is leaving Wulfric just standing alone right now, alone amongst some very angry Dark Elves, as his Skin Wolves do get rampaged in, and they are getting terrified to boot as well. And away they do go as those Sisters of Singing Doom, the ROR Witch Elves, do have that terror, and that causes them to actually naturally rout at this point. And just all of the Marauder Hunters trying to get as much DPS in as they can. I mean, the Sisters of Singing Doom, all of the Witch Elves are very low in terms of HP, but all of the Dark Shards are still very healthy, able to kind of fire in these Dread Spears on the back, kind of just pushing off to the other side, seeing that these Skin Wolves have returned. But on this side, the Sisters of Singing Doom have been able to dish out some decent damage, but the Skin Wolves and the Marauders look to be winning out in the end, and the Dark Riders now having some nice free reign, as all of like the Skin Wolves have been pretty much compromised at this point, very low, and they actually at this point the Dark Riders might be able to win in those engagements, but normally those Skin Wolves would absolutely decimate those Dark Riders in melee. But Dark Elves going on the offensive, pushing back the Fimir Balefine. The Skin Wolves coming back to return to the engagement. But all the Sisters of Singing Doom, plenty of mobility for the Dark Elves still around in the fight, instantly rampaging these armored Skin Wolves, and they are just going to be taking more and more damage as the Sisters of Singing Doom are able to really put a major beatdown on them. Now it looks like we also have Wulfric the Wanderer getting rampaged by more and more of the Witch Elves, so that rampage has really proved to be a major factor in these engagements, and Wulfric is in a rather difficult spot at this point. If he was on his Mammoth, actually this battle might be a little different story, but we are going to be getting a nice pendulum right through all these units, doing a ton of damage to the Sisters of Slaughter, and the Skin Wolves trying to come to the just the help of their lord, who is in a dire straits right now. But we do get a Soul Stealer going to be taking even more damage out of these Skin Wolves, and I think that might just finish off Wulfric. He is getting so very low in terms of health and leadership. He does rout, and he might even just end up dying here, and with him kind of going away, I think that is going to be just about it for the Norskins, as a lot of their units now are just breaking across the board. Wulfric does eventually just outright fall, and I think that is going to be army losses pretty soon. There is not really a whole lot left for the Norskins. There is something units coming back. We have some Skin Wolves, but yeah, that is going to be army losses. The Dark Elves are going to be taking it, and that means Slade will be taking the series 2-1. So let's take a look at the after battle report, update the scorecard as well, and then just kind of see how things did in this final match. So for the Norskin side, the Skin Wolves doing some okay damage, but the armored ones are a fair bit more expensive than the regular Skin Wolves, so none of them were able to really pay for themselves. Some of the mobility, I think, just needed to be, I don't know, a little bit more cautious. All the Skin Wolves needed to deal with the mobility, because the mobility core was still around and operational for the Dark Elves, but even with that, I mean, all of that Witch Elves, that was just something else. Not a build I have seen before, and it really worked out pretty well, because it just deleted the front line for the Norskins. Norskins were able to do some decent work, though. The Marauders traded pretty effectively, almost paying for themselves for most of the units. The Fimir Balefine had some decent pendulums, but again, most of the high value targets that pendulum is expected to be used on were not even in the Dark Elf roster for this fight. Wulfric the Wanderer, a lot cheaper when he is on horseback, so he was pretty much able to pay for himself. Had some nice sea fangs in, but he was really isolated at the end. Just all of his support just melted away so very fast. And for the Dark Elves here, all of the Dark Riders pretty much having the mobility left in the late game was kind of really one of the big factors, and the Dark Shards were able to really put a major beatdown on those armored Skin Wolves, which was really where I think a lot of that value came from. The Sisters of Slaughter were able to do some actually pretty good work. It seemed like they were getting pretty work done on the flanks, but they were able to hold even into that late game, and they were able to dish it out to those Skin Wolves in return. And then the Sisters of Singing Doom, 2,000 total damage value, and the rest of the Witch Elves doing some pretty good work as well. I mean, 900 on these guys, but really it was that rampage that they just caused across that front line, with all units like on the Skin Wolves rampaging them into the line so they couldn't pull out and charge back in. All of like the Marauders, even Wulfric, it just completely bogging down the control that the Norskins would have had with any of their units. When everything is rampaging, it's very hard to control and micro your army when you're just completely unable to do so. Barathi with those Soul Stealers, able to do some nice work there, and really that debuff as well. She just has so many debuffs, because it's like total of -18 melee attack, so it really hampers the damage output of the army around her on the opposing side. Otherwise, it was a very good series. Really loving the build here Sladex brought for the last game. But yeah, that's going to be all I have for today. I do hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good one.